So, good morning, everyone. Today, Haitam Sari, together with my group members Jonathan, Jaden, and Talha, we are going to discuss two cultural dimensions of Hofstede's model, namely individualism versus collectivism and uncertainty avoidance. We are going to discuss what Hofstede says about these dimensions in our culture in China, and do we agree with it based on our personal experiences or not. Further, we are also going to discuss whether the model is still valid or not, and does it require any further research or improvement. So starting off, firstly, we have individualism, which is a dimension that is characterized by a loosely knit social framework under which individuals are expected to take care of themselves and their immediate family only. People who come from individualistic cultures, they tend to be very competitive because they set their individual goals and they tend to make their independent decisions. They also openly talk about their accomplishments and take credit of their contributions when they work in a group. Thus, we can say that the self-image of people in an individualistic society is defined in terms of I rather than we. In contrast, we have collectivism that is demonstrated by tightly knit social framework and in which individuals expect their relatives and their extended family to take care of them in exchange of loyalty. So people from collectivist cultures, they encourage collaborative environments, teamworks and group works a lot. In other words, we can say that collectivism versus individualism is the degree to which people in a society are integrated into groups. So based on this, Jaden, what do you think? What does Hofstede says about your culture in China, and do you agree with it based on your personal experiences?
Hofstede gives the UK a score of 89 on the individualistic score. And I'm from the UK, and I think that individualism is ingrained into this society, with your only concerns being that of yourself and the immediate family. Being selfish is essentially rewarded. People's happiness is solely dependent on their own success within things rather than the whole group.
Okay, and Jonathan, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so I come from America, and it's the same thing. We are highly competitive. I believe our score is 91 for individualism. So it really starts off young. We're taught very young that we're gonna do everything on our own. We shouldn't expect help. That you get what you put in, and so yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And Talha, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I agree with Hofstede because he gives Pakistan a score of 14 for individualism versus collectivism as compared to China, which is 30. And I agree that because in Pakistan, we highly encourage teamwork, and that's why we have these family joint systems, just because we like to depend on each other and we like to move forward with help of others, not like just doing everything by ourselves.
Yes, I totally agree with you because I also come from Pakistan, and Hofstede also says that, you know, in collectivist cultures, people prefer in-group considerations. So hiring and promoting people or employees is often based on family terms and references rather than on their skills and experience. And I sort of agree with it because I have personally experienced this. So back in A levels, I was very much into photography. I used to capture all the events for my school, including farewells, carnivals, sports tournaments, everything. I was always on foot behind the lens, capturing everything. Um, so in the second year, when the student body was being elected, I signed the position for the head of media society. But when the results were announced, I was very disappointed because clearly I was the most deserving candidate, but the girl who was given this position was someone I have never seen before. In fact, she wasn't even a part of society in first year. And later I found that, okay, she was the niece of principal. Just because of that, she was given the preference, and my hard work was simply overlooked. So this is one of the drawback of collectivist culture, which Hofstede also highlights, and I also agree with it. So moving on, we have second dimension, that is uncertainty avoidance. And according to Hofstede, it refers to the degree a culture is comfortable or uncomfortable with ambiguity, with uncertainty or unstructured situations. So unstructured situations are normally the ones which are surprising or unusual. And according to Hofstede, again, cultures that exhibit strong uncertainty avoidance index, they tend to have very rigid behavioral codes, laws, and rules, and they are very intolerant towards unusual ideas. So, Jonathan, based on uncertainty avoidance, what does Hofstede says about your culture and China, and do you agree with it?
Yeah, Hofstede gives us a score around like middle score. I think I want to say it's like 45 or so, 35. And you know, I think Americans are somewhat okay with ambiguity. Not everyone. I think it really just depends on the person. I think we usually do financial ambiguity. We take that on a little stronger. So like we tend to do more financial risks and stuff like that. Culturally though, in the day to day, I think it just depends. So yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. And Talha, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Hofstede in that as well, because he gives a Pakistan score of 70, which means we are like, we do not like to take risks. That's why even technologies and these type of things come very late in Pakistan, just because of the thing, like people don't want to take risk and they just want to go move with the flow. Even though the online businesses and these type of things, still people hesitate there just because they don't want to share their details, bank accounts to anyone online. It's the reason that like people don't feel secure, and rest of the world they are moving forward, and we don't like to take much risks.
Yes, I totally agree because again, as you said, that Hofstede has given China a score of 30, whereas Pakistan is given a score of 70, which means Pakistan is a high risk avoiding country. And in China, what happens is that since the score is very low, that means it also reflects their entrepreneurial thinking and their enterprising skills. And it is very easier to carry business in countries like China because they are more liberal, they're more open, they're more accepting towards new ideas. However, in Pakistan, it is very difficult to do so because they are not welcoming towards change. Bureaucracy is very high, formalities are expected, and outsiders are generally not welcomed. And I can say this because I have spent 20 years of my life in Pakistan, and I have observed a common trend of inheriting family businesses, which clearly shows that people are more comfortable with something they are already familiar with. They like to stay in their comfort zone rather than trying out new things or taking risks. Um, so I totally agree with Hofstede. And Jaden, what do you have to say?
I agree with Hofstede's low score of 35. The UK has a low uncertainty avoidance due to its like laws being relaxed and people being free to express themselves. During daily lives, I do think that ambiguity is just accepted. People won't always know what's happening the next day specifically, or even to a certain extent. Comparing it to China, they also do like to take risks within business and their daily lives, and are also accepting of ideas. But in relation to their current ideology and how they are oppressing their people to a certain extent, you can see this changing. So the uncertainty avoidance score does need to be changed.
Yes, and so do you think Hofstede model is still valid based on your evaluation, or does it require any further changes or research into it?
I think that this model is becoming outdated as time goes on, as cultures and ideas are becoming more interconnected and just changing in general. The culture exchange online means that the line between them is becoming very blurred, with globalization increasing, extending into the workplace as well. Further research should still be done to this model, as yes, Hofstede's work is becoming outdated, but it still gives that basic outline of values and practices those multinational corporations and cultures may hold. Overall, even with its value becoming diminished, Hofstede's model is still valid.
Yes, I actually agree with that as well, because when Hofstede says that, okay, Pakistan is a collectivist culture, I agree with him. When he says that, okay, it's a high risk avoiding country, I agree with him. That means based on my evaluation, I do agree with what Hofstede model says. But again, I think that it's outdated, or it actually requires some sort of update, because I think it's very generalized. It takes into consideration majority, and there is minority that is being neglected. For example, if I talk about my family, now I come from Pakistan, but I think my family specifically is very individualistic. In my family, family businesses are not preferred. My parents do not encourage me and my siblings to join family business or rely on it as a main source of income. We are always taught that, okay, this is a side source of income, and you must develop your careers into something that interests you. That shows that we are very individualistic. And there are many families like my family. But again, yes, they are in minority, but I think they should be considered, or they should be mentioned, because Pakistan is a developing country. It's progressing, people are being educated and gaining awareness, and now the mindset is changing. So it's valid, but again, it does require some sort of update. So Jonathan, what do you have to say about it?
I agree with you guys. I think it definitely needs updating. We're talking about data that he collected decades ago. Like you guys said, populations change. With that, different values within cultures change, and so I think it's very important that it gets a restudy or it gets reevaluated at some point in the future to match the current culture of each nation.
Yes, and Talha, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it is valid Hofstede model, but still it needs update because, like in Pakistan, we can say that individualism, collectivism, it's a tradition that's going on, but due to technology and these type of things, social media, we are changing our mindsets, and this is why you and me and every one of our younger generation, we'd like to take risks and go outside, see the world. That's what we are doing here. So I think it needs update because majority of the people in Pakistan as well, they're taking risk a lot nowadays.
Yes, so I think based on our discussion, I think all four of us agree that yes, the model is valid, but it requires further research. So thank you everyone for joining in and for having such a productive discussion. It was interesting to know your ideas, to know your opinions and insights on the cultural dimensions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.